Malik Monk says the Kings are tired. Mike Brown says they shouldn't be. Kevin Hurter is back to full contact practice. And oh yeah, the Sacramento Kings traded Jalen McDaniels. It's a busy Monday here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. And this morning at Kings practice, or I guess it was early afternoon, right around midday, started a very, very busy and interesting day for the Sacramento Kings here. A busy Monday before the Kings resume their preseason. Game 4 of preseason tomorrow, Tuesday, in Utah against the Jazz. A lot happening around the Kings today and around Kings practice. I'll share with you everything that I saw at Kings practice. I'll share with you sound from Malik Monk, Mike Brown, and Kevin Hurter. You're going to hear from all three of them on today's show. And we have to talk about the Jalen McDaniels trade that confused a lot of people and has some people just outright bothered. We'll touch on it all on today's Locked On Kings podcast. So plenty to get to. I'll start with attending practice, right? So we get let in at the very tail end of practice. And today we got to witness a pretty good chunk of what the Sacramento Kings were doing to end practice. And it was very shooting focused. Look, the Kings have not shot the basketball well at all during preseason. Not at all, right? They are not shooting the ball well. In fact, in 2 of the 3 games so far in preseason, the Kings as a team have only taken 27 shots. They're making a small percentage of them. I think the Kings are shooting like around in the mid-20s in terms of percentage. So they are not shooting well from three-point range right now. And that was a point of emphasis in practice, or at least at the end of practice today. We walked in and there was a 3-team shooting competition going on. Team 1 was essentially all of the starting 5, and Mason Jones was on Team 1. Team 2 was primarily the bench guys, which consisted of Malik Monk, Kevin Hurter. Trey Lyles was out there. It's a non-contact drill, so Trey was able to participate, even with him coming back from his injury. Good to see him out there. Jordan McLaughlin was on that team. They're the team, I believe, that actually won this shooting competition. And then Team 3 was kind of the end of the bench guys, the Scal Labissières, the Boogie Ellises. Alex Len was on Team 2. So pretty much the starters plus Mason Jones, the bench, and then the kind of the journeyman guys. Those were the 3 teams. And I believe the bench team won the shooting competition, where they were each in a different basket and they're taking shots at different points of the floor, either simultaneously on the wings or simultaneously on the baselines. And I think it was the first team to make 10 at any given spot, like got a point, right? And they, after someone scored the point and got 10, then they changed the location of the next group of shots. So it was cool to see that jump shot competition going on. After that, they met in the middle, had their kind of their little short team talk and their end of practice break. And then after that, they went and did some individual shooting work. And a lot of the main guys, including De'Aaron Fox, were sticking around for a lot of their individual shooting work. So in practice today, shooting was a point of emphasis. And that stood out to me, considering how much the Kings have been struggling. Now, we got to speak with Mike Brown, Malik Monk, and Kevin Hurter after practice. And I'm not going to play this clip for you, but when talking to Malik Monk, I asked him about the 3-point shooting. I asked him about the fact that they're only putting up 27 threes in 2 of their 3 games. And he admitted, he's like, yeah, that's pretty low for us. And I said, like, what do you attribute that to? Are you trying to attack the basket more, like emphasizing just not taking as many shots? And kind of in his Malik Monk way, he said, it's preseason. We're not going to show everything. So I don't know if that's Malik trying to play it off, or if the Sacramento Kings have more that they've been working on that they're not showcasing during preseason. Even if that's the case, I think we would all like to see them shoot the basketball a little bit better, and certainly more frequently than 27 times in the final couple of games of preseason. But I want to play this clip for you, because this is the main thing that we're talking about today, the concept of fatigue. The Kings have had a very physical training camp, Mike Brown is already known as one of the, like, in terms of NBA head coaches, he's a coach that has the most practice time, or one of the coaches with the most practice time out of any in the league, right? Mike loves to maximize the amount of time he can get with his team in the gym, getting to working on things, working on concepts, learning, growing, developing, not just doing like shoot arounds and things of that nature. So Mike has been running a very vigorous physical training camp. Well, according to Malik Monk, that's taken its toll a little bit on the players, and that's one of the reasons why the Kings had such a terrible performance against the Portland Trailblazers on Sunday. But what I want you to pay attention to in this clip, because I tie them both together, you'll hear Malik Monk talking about the fatigue, and then you'll see Mike Brown's reaction to when we told him what Malik said about the team being tired.
I think the guys are tired. And it showed last night. We didn't have any legs, so we'll figure it out. We've been doing this for a while, so I think we'll be all right.
What do you attribute some of that fatigue to, especially considering the day off right before?
10 practices in 8 days. That's it. Yeah.
Testament to you guys obviously working hard.
Going hard, yeah, just going hard. It's still preseason too. We just gotta take the positives, look at the negatives, and learn from the negatives. Like we did today in film. Mike gonna show us all the negatives just so we can be on top of it every chance he get, just so we can be on our P's and Q's. So yeah, he do a great job at that. But yeah, we was just tired.
So they're tired.
They are.
Mike, because they mentioned some of that fatigue last night. I mean, did you kind of see some of the same things in terms of them not having the legs under them?
I don't know. It's it's preseason. You're fighting to get back in shape. It was probably more the day off before, because the 2 games we played, nobody's played more than 20 minutes. We had a day off the day before, and maybe they are tired. I hope not. That's a little scary, But I think it might be more maybe mental fatigue, because these guys are like high caliber athletes, and we haven't practiced them too hard. Even our last contact practice, I pulled Malik and Fox and Domas out of the contact practice, so they haven't had a contact practice in a while, in practice. Now they've played 20 minutes in games. Last night it was up to 27 minutes or whatever, but maybe if he says they are, then I guess they are, but I would, without talking to them, I would assume it's more mental fatigue than anything else.
So I could easily take this clip and go the dramatic route, right? And I'm not going to do that, because I don't think it's that big of a deal. But for you audio listeners who are just listening to the podcast, first off, I appreciate you. Second off, maybe head over when you can either to the YouTube version of the show so you can watch that clip that I just played for you, or I have the exact same clip posted to my Twitter account at MattGeorgeSack. Watch it there, because you'll see when we first talk to Mike and we say, like, Malik says the guys are tired, and you look at Mike's facial expressions and body language, he's like, tired? Like, really? Like, what? So I think, and then you hear the rest of his answer, and Mike is normally very well spoken, and he was there, but he did seem a bit flustered by that. Now, I don't think, again, this is anything to be overly critical about or overly concerned about or anything like that, but Mike clearly feels that what they're doing in camp and what they've been doing throughout this preseason is not too much to ask. He clearly feels that way. And even Malik, like, Malik's not saying it's been too much to ask, but Malik's clearly saying that, like, we played badly against Portland because we didn't have any legs. Like, we didn't play well. And I think Domantas Sabonis, I wasn't in the locker room, but I'm pretty sure Domantas Sabonis said in a post-game interview in the locker room that the guys were tired from the amount of practices they've had, the 2-a-days that they had in the opening week of training camp, how aggressive those practices have been, and now the 3 preseason games last week. It's an excuse. And I don't think the Kings are using it in a way to justify how they played. I think they're just more simply saying like, yeah, we just were flat out tired last night. We did not play to our full capabilities. We did not match the physicality of Portland because we just were tired. And while I can understand that from my super unathletic self, I talk about the sport, don't play it. Mike's reaction to that I thought was very interesting because he clearly doesn't feel like they can be tired or they should be tired. He mentioned like, hey, maybe there's mental fatigue because we're throwing a lot at them. They're learning a lot of things, learning a lot of new concepts. They're trying to get in shape and everything before as we ramp up to the season. There's a lot going on in a short period of time. So maybe there's mental fatigue, but he's like physical fatigue, like that shouldn't be a thing with this group because they had the day off before the Portland game. So they had a day of rest before going into that game. The top guys, including Malik, did not, he said got pulled out of a full contact practice when they went like full 5-on-5 contact drills. And he said he pulled the main guys out and they've only done that once so far during this training camp period. So I don't know what to make of this concept of the Kings being tired. It's not a valid excuse. It's not a valid, ultimately the way I feel about it is this, like if the Kings feel that they can take a night off, for lack of a better term, against Portland, that they can get away with not taking the preseason as seriously as they should, or not giving 110% because they are fatigued based off of the work that they've been doing outside of preseason games. If they feel like they can get away with that, okay. The one thing we can't see is 5-10 games into the season, the Kings get off to a slow start and we hear this, oh, the Kings needed to, or we need to spend more time together. We're still learning each other. We're still figuring things out. That's what this freaking preseason is for. So if you have these 5 games in preseason to hopefully work through that rust, and one of the games you just flat out did not play well because you say you're tired, and you get into the regular season, then you start talking about the regular season or the preseason, or you start talking about the regular season early on as you need time to continue to get to know each other or get comfortable playing together. That's where I'm going to start to be a little annoyed or a little bothered with this. Again, I'm not trying to be overly dramatic. The fact that we're talking about fatigue already and we haven't even gotten to game 1 of the season is silly. I don't think Malik said it in any kind of way like, oh my God, we're exhausted, we're being run too hard. I think Malik was just being honest. Like we were tired. Malik missed a few days because of his personal issues. And he talked about how when you miss time, like that really impacts you conditioning wise, because you're not out there like getting in shape. And he talked about, for him personally, his approach to these final couple of preseason games are about conditioning and for him getting in shape. So maybe this team just is still ramping themselves up physically to be able to play at the level that they expect to be playing at, and that Mike Brown and the coaching staff are holding them to. But like the fact that we're talking about fatigue this earlier in the season is a little confusing. And I totally understand Mike Brown's reaction to hearing his players mention being tired 2 weeks into the quote unquote basketball season or NBA calendar, with the preseason being still going on and the regular season still coming, still a week and a half away. Right. Hopefully we're not talking about being tired too much more after this. While like right after practice ended, there was a big, not really big, there was a trade that the Sacramento Kings made, moving Jalen McDaniels to the San Antonio Spurs. We'll talk about that trade. Plus, you're going to hear from Kevin Hurter still to come on today's podcast. Before that, though, like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is the app or site that you need to be using to get your tickets, whatever the event is, a Kings game, an NFL football game, an MLB baseball game, a non-sporting event like a concert or a theatrical production, a comedy show, whatever it is. Gametime has the tickets for you, and they have a feature called Gametime Picks that helps you sort through all of the fluff, all of the deal or the tickets that are there, and only show you the best deals on great seats. Not all in one area. We're not just talking about all the best deals for courtside seats that might be out of your budget still. It gives you good deals all over the budget map, so you can find the right seats for the right price that works for you. Gametime has an incredible all-in pricing feature. It's so simple and yet so necessary when buying tickets. All of us have purchased tickets and thought it was going to be one price and then gotten to the final checkout screen where there's another $20, $30, $40 worth of fees that are added on top. And for some of us, that might have just been the deal breaker. Like, you know what, this is too expensive, I'm not going. Gametime will show you the totals up front, no surprise fees at checkout with their all-in pricing. The best seat views you're going to find anywhere else, the lowest price guarantee, and their Gametime ticketing coverage is second to none. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. So around 15 minutes or so after Kings practice ended, a Shams notification. Shams bomb? Is that the thing now that Woj is gone? A Shams notification went out that the Sacramento Kings have traded Jalen McDaniels to the San Antonio Spurs. They also sent a second round pick to the San Antonio Spurs for nothing. Nothing. Like still now, nothing. The Kings have not gotten anything back. So there's two things. There's two elements of this trade that we're going to talk about. The first element is why the Kings would make this move and why I believe there's much more coming. And number two, we're going to talk about the Davion Mitchell trade because Jalen McDaniels was the main piece that the Kings got back in that Davion Mitchell deal. And some people are thinking like, what the hell was the point of that trade altogether? I understand this makes it look worse. I understand the reason why the Davion Mitchell trade happened, and I'll kind of lay that out here in a little bit. But let's talk about this trade at least first and foremost. So the only, like, Monty doesn't do moves like this just to make a move, right? And this makes no sense if there's not something else coming after it, right? So what did Monty accomplish? At least as of right now, what did Monty accomplish? He sent out some money. He got a little bit of money off the books. Not that Jalen McDaniels was making a boatload. And he opened up a roster spot. Now, that roster spot can be used in probably one of two primary ways. You can add in a third, which would be like trading for another player. But I think this roster spot is going to be used to either give a job or give a spot to someone else in camp that impressed you. I'm going to use Boogie Ellis, for example, right? Let's say Boogie Ellis impressed them so much that, you know what, we don't have any two-way spots left to give. And we want to make sure Boogie Ellis is on our team. So we're going to give that spot to Boogie Ellis. Or maybe, hey, we're really impressed by Isaiah Crawford, how he's playing. So we're going to have him go from two-way spot to main roster spot and then have Boogie Ellis take the two-way spot. You have now the flexibility to keep another guy around from camp if they impressed you. That's number one. Number two, and I think this is the more likely case, remember the names that the Kings were bringing in for workouts before training camp began? The main one being Jay Crowder. You now have an open roster spot to go out and get one of those guys if you want to on a league veteran minimum deal. Like that makes sense. You make a move like this to free up a spot. That doesn't mean anything unless you actually use that spot for something. It would not surprise me at all if we read an announcement in the near future that like Jay Crowder is a Sacramento King or a free agent that Monty's had his eye on for a while becomes a Sacramento King. Because there's no way Monty just made this trade for any other reason other than to open up a spot to do something else. So I would not, this trade is not finalized in the sense that like we haven't seen all the fallout from this move being made. But let's talk about the other element of this, because the Kings acquired Jalen McDaniels from the Toronto Raptors for Davion Mitchell, Sasha Vezenkov, and the 45th pick in this year's draft. So the Kings traded 2 players and a second rounder to get a player that they now traded along with a second rounder for nothing. So essentially the Kings traded away Mitchell, Vezenkov, and 2 second rounders for nothing. Now I know the Davion Mitchell train, I guess, kind of left the station. And what I mean by that is I think it was clear that Davion and the Kings were heading in a separate direction, right? Davion kind of needed a fresh start. The Kings weren't getting from Mitchell clearly what they were looking for. And so a mutual parting of ways, I think, needed to happen. The Sasha Vezenkov thing, too. We know Sasha was not happy with how everything played out. The Kings basically got his money off their books, and then Sasha went to Europe, and the rest is history. Good luck to him. But Davion's the big one here, because that was a former top, 10 Kings lottery pick that they just have now essentially traded away for nothing. That part kind of stings a little bit, except when you remember that move financially was a precursor to getting DeMar DeRozan. Like the Kings cannot afford to bring in DeMar DeRozan and make that trade happen, that sign and trade happen, without making that Davion Mitchell, Sasha Vezenkov move. I don't know if that makes you feel better or not. Me understanding like that's the case allows me to look past the fact that the Kings essentially gave Davion Mitchell away. And the fact that you lost 2 second rounders too in this whole scenario, not that second rounders mean that much, but that it doesn't look great. But again, we can't make our final judgment of this trade until we find out what the Kings do with that roster spot. And this is not a scenario where it's going to take weeks or a month for them to make a decision, right? The roster cuts are coming. The season starts a week from Thursday. So we're probably going to get an answer and another move, the final piece of this whole transaction. We're probably going to get that here in the coming days. And when we do, then we can kind of make a final decision and make give our final opinions and feelings on this entire thing. On the surface, it's confusing. You moved on from Jalen McDaniels really, really quickly. Truth be told, I don't remember seeing him at practice. Some reporters said they saw him. I don't remember seeing him. I wasn't particularly looking for him. And now, as it stands, the roster right now, like you were already hurting for wing depth. Now you have like virtually none of it, right? Like Jalen McDaniels was the guy that, in theory, at least intangibles wise, size, wingspan, athleticism, like he could back Keegan Murray up a little bit. Not that I think Jalen McDaniels was really going to play, but he was your somewhat depth at that position. Now you really have none of it. So you best be using this open roster spot to figure that part out, which is why I think like a Jay Crowder, again, makes a ton of sense. Or maybe even a TJ Warren was another name that the Sacramento Kings were working out before training camp began. But Jay Crowder just makes a lot of sense. Not that I would expect Jay Crowder to play all that much, but Jay Crowder makes a lot of sense. And it would make sense for the Kings to open up a roster spot to bring a guy like that in with a move like this. So time will tell on the this Jalen McDaniels trade. All right, before you hear from Kevin Hurter in his first full contact practice since being cleared, I want to tell you a little bit more about another great sponsor here of the Locked On Kings podcast. I'm talking about FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you're watching a game and you start getting a hunch, right? Maybe it's college football. Maybe it's a football game on a Sunday, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football. You're sitting at home, you're watching the game, and you just have that feeling like, I know how this is going to go. I feel like there's going to be a pick here, or I feel like this team is going to win by this amount, or this is going to be a really good second half, or whatever. You get that feeling. Now you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page that you place your bets on FanDuel. They put the entire spread of information right there in front of you so you can make the best decision possible with what to do with your money and hopefully make money on FanDuel. And when you Get started on FanDuel. You'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Put $5 on anything at all. Win or lose, you get $200 in bonus bets right then and there for you to really start making some money and having some fun on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It was good to see Kevin Hurter in practice today. Now, he's been there through training camp and through preseason practices so far, but this was the first day that Kevin Hurter could fully participate in everything, including contact drills. Now, we found out after practice that he still hasn't done a ton, right? There's a ramp up process. It's not like, hey, you're medically clear. Let's throw you out there, throw you to the wolves with this shoulder that you've been nursing back to health over the last 8-9 months. Like, here you go, figure it out. Hopefully you don't get hurt again. They're not going to do that to Kevin. They're going to ramp him back up. I'm not going to play the audio for you, but we talked to Mike about Kevin Hurter, and it was kind of confusing. And again, this might be because Mike was kind of flustered by how the press conference started and hearing the fatigue comments or the tired comments from Malik Monk. But Mike essentially shared with us, like, he's not fully aware of what Kevin can and can't do right now. He's basically waiting for the team doctors and trainers and everybody to say, like, yeah, he's cleared to play. Mike shared with us he hasn't really thought about if Kevin Hurter is going to play at all this preseason, if he's going to try and sneak him in either tomorrow against the Jazz or Thursday against the Clippers. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Kings to try and get him back in for that Thursday Clipper game, just to give him a little bit of action before the regular season starts. What the hell do I know? Mike didn't really give us anything. Maybe he's playing his cards close to his chest and kind of playing dumb and playing ignorant. I don't know, but we didn't get anything from Mike in that sense. But we did get to speak to Kevin. And at first, Kevin provided us with an update on how he's feeling and his build up back to getting into NBA game shape.
Yeah, I feel good. I feel good. I got cleared for you guys saw non-contact or cleared for contact a couple days ago, and now there's just there's a progression to get back to where you guys see me on the court in front of everybody. And I haven't played against anybody for almost 7 months, and so there's a process to get there. It's not going against anybody live and all of a sudden getting told you can go live. There still takes a little bit of time to ramp up and feel comfortable, and mentally me feel comfortable getting through that. And so there's a process we have here within the Kings, and continue to go through that.
Waiting to hear from them, is it too ambitious to play in maybe one of these preseason contests, or is that,
Yeah, we'll see. We'll kind of see how practice goes. Today was another good step. I'll play live a little bit with our own guys tomorrow. And then it's honestly just how the shoulder responds. It's, as you guys know, a lot of times you're going through injuries as you start to introduce new things. There's a little bit of a period you go through soreness and your body reacts to it, and that's the same thing, and that's very normal. So every new step that I move up and continue to add and continue to ramp up, just got to continue to be smart and safe, and you realize it's a long season.
Does that feel different?
It doesn't feel like my right shoulder. So, that's how it goes when you have an operation, and it'll take time. Even hopefully the day that I start playing and I'm playing in real games, it won't be exactly like my right. It might take a little bit, but I'm prepared for that. It just gets to a point where I know it feels strong, I'm confident in it, and I feel like it's in a good spot.
Are you eager to take that bump, like that first bump?
Oh my God, yeah! Like first day, I played ones like the first day I got back, and that was literally the first time I was able to go against somebody competitively. So I'm eager. I want to get back. I want to be back on the court with this team. I'm excited to get in with this group. But like I said, it's a long season at 82. When I come back, I want to be here to stay, not in and out of the lineup or whatnot.
So the most important stuff to take from Kevin's comments there. Number one is today, as soon as he was cleared, he was able to play one-on-one, which he has not been able to do that at all. And he played one-on-one apparently against a member of the Kings coaching staff. And that was his first test to be able to kind of try that shoulder out. And I'm sure getting bumped on that left shoulder the first couple of times probably was a little nerve-wracking for someone who just had an operation and just had surgery on that body part. But apparently it went well, and Kevin seemed happy to be back into that contact practice. He also said that tomorrow, I imagine during shoot around before Kings and Jazz, he will be able to run some contact 5-on-5 with the Kings, and still a more controlled environment. It's not like they're going to go super hard with a game later on that night, but Kevin will be able to at least play in more of a team setting tomorrow, or at least that's what he says he's going to do. So that's important. And then he said there too, though, like he's expecting not setbacks necessarily, but he's expecting as he ramps back up and starts to build himself back in actual game shape. He's expecting soreness. He's expecting things to hurt. He's expecting, like he basically said there, like my left shoulder doesn't feel like my right shoulder, right? So he's still feeling the effects a little bit. So it's going to take him time. Just because you're fully clear does not mean it's like, okay, get him back in there, throw him back out there. Like Jordan McLaughlin was kind of a weird scenario. We hadn't heard much about Jordan. We knew he was going to get reevaluated, and then it was like, he's good to go and he's playing tonight. Like, we're not going to get that with with Kevin Hurter. I just hope that they're able to utilize, really, forget the rest of the preseason. Use the next 9 to 10 days and get him as right and ready as you can so that hopefully he can come in and play a part in opening night against the Minnesota Timberwolves, because I think the Kings are going to need him and Trey Lyles if Trey is going to be able to go. The Kings are going to need to be as close to full strength as possible with their main rotation against a team like Minnesota. That's just the reality. And we've seen how their second unit has struggled at times with the absence of guys like Kevin Hurter. Finally, a number of people actually have commented on Locked On Kings about Kevin Hurter, where'd the headband go? Where's Kevin Hurter's headband? Like, this has been a topic of conversation at least amongst Kings social media pages. Well, Kevin confirmed that the headband is no more.
Headband's done. That's correct.
Any reason for that?
Went through a pretty traumatic career experience with a headband on, so I think I'm gonna put it away for a little bit.
Despite having a really good career experience here before.
It's true, yeah, but this one is it's a little bit newer in the memory bank.
Do you like burn it or bury it?
There's actually a lot of talk. We did talk about doing something like that, but haven't come across it yet. Still got a lot at the house.
I am all for a symbolic sacrificial ritual for the headband, for Kevin to get rid of the bad juju of last season, man. From his struggles to his injury, we can just leave last season in the past, put that in a box, and never open that box again. All right, now I want to hear from you. Your excitement level for Kevin Hurter coming back, and what kind of impact you think Kevin Hurter will have on the Kings as soon as he is fully returned to action. Your thoughts on Malik Monk's tired comments and Mike Brown's reaction to that. Your thoughts on the Jalen McDaniels trade, at least from what we know at this point in time. Lay it all out there. Hit me with it at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. Kings and Jazz tomorrow. I believe there will be a stream somewhere for us to be able to watch that game. I'll be watching from the ABC 10 studios. Hopefully I'll have enough to be able to do a post-game pod on that later on this week. Have some great guests coming on, including the legendary Jerry Reynolds is scheduled to join me on Wednesday. So I have a lot of great stuff coming for you here on the Locked On Kings podcast in this final week of preseason. So let's enjoy it together. Appreciate your support. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.